Do you struggle to finish what you've started? Do you find yourself procrastinating or waiting to the very last minute to take action? Do you even lack motivation? Well, if you said yes to any of those, today you're in for a big surprise, because today we're going to be learning about the science of self-discipline. In today's live stream, I'll be sharing with you some of the most important ideas discovered so you can quickly develop your own personal self-discipline and achieve your goals faster and easier. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if this is the first time that we're meeting, my name is Daniel Tolson, and I have personally lacked in self-discipline. You wouldn't believe it. I used to think I was the only person in the world who lacked self-discipline. But as I looked around, I realized that I was not the only person who was lacking discipline. So if you're joining me for the very first time, say hello. Head over to the comments box, say hello. If you're one of our repeat offenders and you've been here many times, say hello. Let me know how your day's coming along. Now, many years ago, I said to my wife, Ninny, I said, I'm going to get a tattoo. And she said, Daniel, if you get a tattoo, what are you going to get a tattoo of? I said, I'm going to get a tattoo across my chest that says discipline. She said, why would you do such a stupid thing? And I said, well, I've done many stupid things over the years because of a lack of discipline. And it's been very interesting. I have set many goals over the years. I have set goals for business. You wouldn't believe it. I've set goals about money. You couldn't imagine anybody doing that. I've set goals about my health. And what shocked me was that there was other people out there who are not as smart as me, not as good looking as me, who have achieved my goals before I've even achieved them. And it really made me upset because I looked around and I realized that other people were achieving the exact same goals. And it was very confusing because we had the same goal. They achieved it, but I did not. And what I realized, what makes some people more successful than others is simply their discipline. And today I'll be joined by my good friend, Dr. Joe Isaac, and he's also going to come along and give us some of the latest thinking on self-discipline. So what happens, and it tends to be at the end of each year, that we all sit down and we start to write New Year's resolutions. And what happens is we write these New Year's resolutions on day 365. Day one of the year starts, and by day two, we've already given up on their goals. The goal is not a problem. The self-discipline is a problem. So joining me, my good friend, Dr. Joe Isaac. Dr. Joe, g'day.
Hi, Dan. I am so glad to be here. Thank you so much for tuning in and for inviting me. It has been a bit of a challenge, and I am glad that I'm here.
Well, as they say, inshallah, this is meant to be. This was God's will, but we're here. So, Joe, we're talking about self-discipline today, and I've just revealed an ugly truth.
Yes.
That I lacked discipline. I'd set financial goals, I'd set business goals, I'd set weight loss goals, and I wouldn't achieve them. And then I realized I wasn't the only person in the world who set and didn't achieve their goals. And throughout my days, what I realized was there was nothing wrong with the goal. It was my lack of discipline. And so it's a very important topic for today. So my question for you is, have you ever lacked discipline in your life?
In fact, that's a very good question. I have lacked discipline big time in my life up until my end of my teenage years. And when I joined the force, that's when the character...
Star Wars?
No, the force, the military. This is where all things have changed. So I'm not sure if a lot of people, the civilians, may not know this part, that if you join any policing academy or any military, there is, depending on the country that you're in, at least 40 days of training. And you can't really go and see your family. And one of the very good questions to raise here, why 40 days? Why you can't go and visit your family or go out? It's almost like you're jailed for 40 days, depending on the country.
Wasn't Jesus in the desert for 40 days?
Well, that's another thing too. So I guess what I'm trying to make here is that they try to entrench you in the culture of self-discipline. That you have to be in an environment where things are done in a particular way and there's no compromise to this. This is how it goes and this is the way it works. For that habit to kick in psychologically, 21 days, if you're really dive deep on any habit, you can change the person you want to be to replace that old habit to the new habit. Another interesting thing, I mean, probably you may not have been exposed to this then because you're Australian, you're born in Australia, but for imports like me, one interesting question that can raise itself: when you are trying to get your residency, after you get your permanent residency, you can't be Australian citizen until you spend a specific amount of time that has changed from time to time in the country without leaving. The last one I know was 12 months you can't leave Australia. Every time you leave and you come back, they got to count 12 months consecutive in Australia for you to become Australian citizen. Another question, the military 40 days and above, you have to be at least 1 year here in Australia to get the Australian citizen. Why? This is a question here of why these things are in place. The answer for them is that they're trying. So for the Australian citizen, you need to absorb the Australian culture, acknowledge the Australian way of living, and be in a way okay with that and accepting it and understanding it. For the military, it's about changing habits. So what we're trying to say here from the two real examples, right, examples that we have shared, that for you to have that self-discipline, number one thing, you need to restructure your environment. That's number one thing, to restructure your environment completely. And that could mean sometimes that you may not need to hang out with those people anymore, or perhaps you need to change the city that you're in, or perhaps you need to change the suburb that you're in, or move from a house to a house. The environment is super important. And when I say the environment, I don't necessarily mean the house that you're in. Sometimes it's a social environment that you're in. And as you were saying in one of your videos the other day, Dan, sometimes you need to change and find the job that really inspire you and the kind of work that you would love to do that will just make every single day count in your life.
So true, so true. So my grandfather was in the military, and he was in the Air Force, and gee, he was strict. Gee, he had some rules. And I remember that every day we had to polish our boots. Every day we had to make our beds. Every time we washed the car or cleaned the house, he'd take his white tip glove and drag his finger across it, make sure there was no dust. But there was a lot of discipline in there. And what I noticed as a businessman, he would do what was hard. And what I see with a lot of disciplined people is they do what is hard. Even if they don't like it, they still have developed that discipline to do it. And so today, if you're lacking discipline, it's probably that you haven't been shown what discipline is, or you might not even have a good strategy on how to create discipline in your own life. Joe,
That's
one of
right.
the things that stumps me from time to time, and I've been a victim of it myself, is that
Yes.
most of us are looking for this breakthrough. We're looking for this one thing that we're going to do, and it's going to change our entire life. It's like winning the lottery. I think a lot of people are waiting there to win the discipline lottery. You know, I'm just going to nail discipline one day.
No.
But in my opinion, I think discipline has to be treated like the weather. The weather goes up in increments of degrees. It doesn't go from 10 degrees to 50 degrees. It doesn't even go from 10 to 40 or 10 to 30,
Unless you're in Australia.
unless you're in Australia. It goes from 10 to 11.
To 11 and sometimes to minus if you want.
You know, it feels like it, doesn't it? And then,
Yeah.
you know, it's those disciplines. It's that doing that one thing consistently, day in and day out. And in one of my programs at the moment, we're writing affirmations. And 30 people started writing affirmations. Within a week, 10 people had dropped off.
Absolutely.
After a week after that, another 5 people. And about 8 or 9 people crossed the finish line after 30 days of written affirmations. And what they started to tell me was that the act of writing these affirmations every day, the discipline of it, having accountability like a sergeant major, all of a sudden they developed the discipline of writing affirmations, but they started to develop discipline in other areas of their life. They said it was like a osmosis effect. All of a sudden they're disciplined here, then now they're disciplined over there, and they're disciplined everywhere.
And that's true. And that is so true, Daniel, from a behavioral pattern perspective. You know, one thing my dad taught me, my dad was a doctor, a surgeon, not a psychologist, but he told me something very, very early on. He said, if someone is good, they're generally good in everything. And if someone is bad, they're generally bad in everything. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you are good in literally everything, but it might be something that you're not so good at it. But the majority, the overall, the disposition, the outlook, and bad is the same thing. So when people achieve something in terms of self discipline, for instance, or in terms of raising their confidence, and I talked about this before, that confidence is not something absolute, it's kind of levels, and sometimes it goes up and it goes down. So if you are stepping up, that really enhances you to excel and step that game in other areas as well, not necessarily just in that area that that person is in. And this is precisely the game, as the explanation to what you're saying, then, that they have shown discipline here, and then now it's here, and now it's here, and now it's here, because it's a behavior. Once you strike that behavior, it's already happening. And this is what we would like to see. And how people get into the habit is always, like you said, taking it like the weather, step by step. When they write affirmations, we all know the story about the New Year's resolution, etc. And then 2 3 days later, it's all history behind us. Let's look forward for 2022. But the thing is here, and I think we've talked about this before in previous episodes. So if you haven't watched those ones, check out our previous episodes. We expanded on this point, is that those people did not write the right goals. They did not set themselves up for success in the first place. And now all they see is that they're failing, and therefore they give up and give up and give up. And that means they go down under. By the way, thank you for those people who are tuning in right now and joining us. I can see Hamide over here with us. Hello. No, I arrived late, but thank you so much. And for those people who are watching us on the replay, always let us know if there's any challenge that you are facing that you would like us to dig and expand on for another episode. So always give us a feedback, because us here sitting down talking to you, it's kind of one-way direction. It will be nice if it's two-way direction, so we can help you further. Now, moving on from this point to the term self-discipline, Daniel, you know the Australian saying, you can take the man out of the army, but you can't. Do you know the statement? Have you heard it before?
They say it about me. They say you can take the boy out of Penrith, but you can't take Penrith out of the boy.
Well, I guess this is another variant.
So don't mess with me. You know where I'm from. I'm from the West.
I've just had some people today. We've had stuff at work, and some people joining us, and one of them was from Penrith. So when I spoke with them, I was like, "Oh, there's going to be 2 Penriths today. That's one. Then the next one is coming up."
We don't have blood in our vein. We got V8 petrol in our veins.
There's nothing wrong with that. The V8s and the power of it, as long as you own a petrol station to be able to handle such a powerful car, you should be right. As they say, you can't take the man out of the army. You can't take the army out of a man, or Penrith, or this kind of joke that we've just cracked. It's all about putting yourself in that position where you have a code. Discipline is nothing but a code. If you live by this code, no matter what. Now, one of the things, it's all nice and easy to talk about, right? So the people that are watching us and even on the replay are like, oh yeah, it's easier said than done. All right, well, let me talk to you. You're not talking to some people here that are university lecturers, where I am a university lecturer, but I'm not one of those people that just speaks theory. Right, so I'm speaking practical to you. Now, here's the deal. If you are working on that code, one of the challenges that you face is, like, let's say, okay, you need to get something done. This is your code, your self-discipline. You can't sleep until you finish task 3 or 4. And then you'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm really tired. One tip I will share with you that I personally use all the time, and it has never, ever failed me, is I always look at the end of the line. What does it mean by the end of the line? It means the outcome of, the self-discipline that I'm doing. Why am I doing this? Why am I saying, okay, I can't sleep until I arrive here or do this task, etc.? Because I have a particular goal that I want to reach. Be it I want to get promoted, be it I need a new job, be it I want to make more money, whatever the reason is, look at the benefits and the perks of you achieving that goal and live in the future. This gives you a very strong fighting power. It's almost like Viagra pills. All of a sudden, you get that push. Oh my god, I'm going to be driving that car. So I used this then. We haven't met each other back then when I had the boat. Had a very large, nice yacht, about 3 rooms here in Australia, and it was not cheap. It was very expensive, and I was punching above my waist. Let me tell you this: I'm not a rich guy or anything, but I was punching above my waist at the time. And every time I had to work extra, do overtime, kind of another job, etc., I just had to look at that boat. I already looked at the boat. I already know how much, and all I need to do is to say yes and buy it. But I don't have the money yet. So I was working hard and I really wanted to sleep, let me tell you. And it was cold and I wanted to be tucked under the blanket. But all I could see is that boat. And in summer days, I'm going and I'm having crazy parties on the boat, having all my friends, all my family, and loving life. This was my Viagra push, kept like keeping me in check all the time, because self-discipline, although easy to talk about, for you civilians, it's not as easy. If you are in an environment, if you do like a program with me and then where we go, let's say 1 week somewhere, and you have the sub group or the other team members that are with you and me and then leading the crew, it's much easier when you have people with you to build that self-discipline and actually get to where you want to get. But by yourself, it's much harder. But that does not mean it's impossible.
100%. Well, there's 4 steps. And in my life, I've followed a simple 4-step formula to improve my discipline. But I did a little researching on Google before, and I realized that in about half a second, Google comes up with 318 million searches for the term self-discipline.
Yes.
And so it's a considerable amount of the world's population who is looking for an answer to solve this problem. I'm going to give you 4 simple steps now, and all you need to do is to apply them. And Joe's kicked it off already. He said you've got to look to the future. So the first step when it comes to solving self-discipline is you have to decide what you want. You've got to make a decision. What is it that I want? So you've got to look out into the future and ask yourself, what do you want? Once you know what you want, then you want to write that down because it gives you something to focus on. Right. Secondly, what you want to do is you want to set a deadline. You need to lock that thing into place. So if you want to buy a yacht, if you want to buy a boat, then if you say in the future, it's inshallah. Inshallah, if it's God's will, it'll happen. No. You have to choose the date. God will provide. You got to choose the date. And that's a forcing system. And our unconscious mind likes a forcing system.
Correct.
So, secondly, set a deadline. Thirdly, once you decide what you want, once you've set a deadline, you've got to make a list. You've got to look from the future all the way back to now. And you've got to ask yourself, what are all the things that have to be done in order to achieve that outcome? So you make a list. And then once you've made the list, you do the 4th thing. Then you do one thing. You do something every single day. And if there's 100 things to do, and you do all of those 100 things over the next 100 days, your success is virtually guaranteed. And so you've got to take the big picture, and then you've got to break it down into little bite-sized chunks. So, quick review, 4 steps. 1, decide what you want. If you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. If that red Ferrari drives down the street, it exists, which means you can own it. You've just got to make a choice. There's a billion things, but you've got to choose one thing. Secondly, you've got to set a deadline. You've got to put an affirmative end date. I will achieve this goal by this date, and then that date is non-negotiable. You then make a list. What of all the things that I have to do from then all the way back to now? And you write them all down. Make a list. And then, fourthly, every single day, you do one thing every single day. And if there's 100 things to do on that list, and you just do one thing once a day for the next 100 days, success is virtually guaranteed. It's that simple. And just like the weather, it goes up incrementally. If you just do it 1 degree, 1 degree, 1 degree, it's very easy. So remember those 4 steps.
That's awesome. Then thank you so much for sharing that with us. For those people who are watching us on the replay, I'd really appreciate it if you drop us a comment on this one or the next one, telling us how you've used our steps, our tips, and how they moved you from even procrastination to no longer procrastinating whatever it is that you need to do, because these things get us excited. And also, if you watch our videos, make sure that you like, follow, and share it to spread the good word. You have to pay $4,000 or $5,000 to get those things. Now you're getting them for free, so make sure that you pay the taxes. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we're looking forward to see you next Monday, same time, give or take. Sometimes I run on Arab time like today, so be patient with me, and I will be there. I promise you, because consistency and self-discipline is the key.
Yalla. Ladies and gentlemen, ciao for now.